Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm a 6th grader at North Star Middle School in the Arctic Zone, and today I am going to give you some tips on how to make a movie. Before you decide on the plot, here are some common movie genres your movie plot could be in. Just a reminder that your movie can be in many different genres: action, adventure, horror, comedy, thriller or suspense, drama, musical, documentary, and western. Just keep in mind that there are hundreds of different genres out there. Here are some tips for writing an action or adventure screenplay. First of all, write in the present tense and avoid words like is, are, and other words with the suffix ing. Keep action descriptions so that if you were to film a sample of that scene, you would be able to read the script the same amount of time it would take you to watch it. Of course, don't get too technical and don't write camera angles into the script. Withhold information from the audience, of course, make them infer some. Of course, make your characters strategize. Don't put the answer to the question literally right in front of them. Put your characters in believable scenarios. For example, you probably would not want them to be like, walks into antagonist lair. Oh well, there's the antagonist. Super easy to defeat. Of course, don't make the movie longer than it needs to be. And of course, remember to write a backstory for your characters. And now, here are some tips for writing a horror screenplay. First of all, start with ideas from what scares you personally, and get ideas and inspiration from friends and coworkers. Obviously, rewatch your favorite horror movies and get ideas from those. And of course, respect feedback and constructive criticism from the people who watch your movie or write your script. It's meant to help you. Of course, make your audience like the characters and sympathize for them, and build an emotional experience for both your characters and the audience. Of course, use the setting to your advantage. I'm going to cover more of that later. And of course, don't worry about any of the whys. Horror is a great genre to film if you don't want to worry about logic. Tips for writing a comedy screenplay. Of course, make witty characters and adapt jokes from online, because it is not stealing if you paraphrase it. If you comedic characters, make it so that their actions are just as funny, if not even funnier, than their words. Of course, remember to try punchlines for your script on complete strangers to get their feedback. Always remember that two people are funnier than one, and of course, the faster the dialogue, the funnier the line is. And of course, just remember that humor is based in reality. Tips for writing a thriller screenplay. Of course, make a complex protagonist. Ask yourself, what do they do for a living? What's their goal? Do they need to save themselves or someone else? How do they react in the face of danger, etc., etc., etc.? Start the movie with an action scene of some sort and just plunge the audience into peril. Of course, make sure there's extremely high stakes and obviously show what's at stake. And of course, make it extremely difficult for your protagonist. And bring on the plot twists. Just don't add so many it gets confusing. And of course, build up to the climax and give it a very satisfying ending. Tips for writing a drama screenplay. Choose the structure for your narrative. Create a layered conflict. Create layered characters without conflict. Of course, use deception and disguise to withhold information from the audience, and to create lots of complications and obstacles to layer the conflict. Tips for writing a musical screenplay. Make characters who need or want something very badly. And of course, make a powerful antagonist or obstacle. Make the conflict force them to give up almost everything. And if even a tiny part of you says no to an idea, don't write it. The biggest mistake people make when writing a musical is saying yes when they mean no. Tips for writing a documentary screenplay. First of all, tell a story that you personally care about and do tons of research. Learn everything you can about your documentary subject. Of course, you're also going to want to create an outline and think about how you're going to tell your story. And of course, make plans for filming. And don't interview the world for your documentary. If you interview anyone, a good idea would be to only interview about 7 to 8 people. And of course, decide where you want to promote your documentary. That can dictate your shooting style. Of course, make a script and edit it over and over and over again. And, very important, check legal and copyright stuff because you can't promote something if it's copyrighted. Here's some tips for writing a Western screenplay. First of all, write an inciting attack from the antagonist, where the protagonist is introduced to the antagonist. And of course, make the protagonist discover and understand the antagonist's motive or object of desire. And of course, the protagonist has to take action against the antagonist at any cost. And of course, make sure the protagonist's original plan to defeat the antagonist fails. Of course, make the protagonist reach an all is lost mindset at some point, just like, well, I'm never gonna get this right. And then make a protagonist at the mercy of the antagonist moment at the climax. And of course, make sure that the protagonist's sacrifice is rewarded. Now, here are some tips for making the plot. First, you'll probably want to outline the plot, make a plan for the scenes, and then revise it multiple times to make sure it's what you want. Of course, you might change the plot sometime during the scripting or editing process, but just make sure it doesn't create any plot holes or bugs. Then make a description, like a second, more detailed description of each scene. Secondly, flesh out the plot and make sure the setting is realistic, or in some cases unrealistic, depending on the plot, and ways your audience can relate to. You'll also want to bring the plot to a powerful resolution and not let it fizzle out. I personally like to resolve the conflict mere seconds before it's too late. Also, make sure to end at a natural stopping point after the plot arc is finished, not somewhere in the middle of the arc. Make sure to try and have your characters resolve the conflict on their own without help from nature, an unknown hero, or just pure chance.